All right, let's dive in. You sent over this World Bank report,
Uh-huh.
Digital Pathways for Education.
Right.
It's quite a bit, isn't it?
It's a hefty one.
But that's what we do here, right? We break it down, pull out those key insights, so you
Absolutely.
don't have to wade through all the jargon.
Exactly. Make it digestible.
It's a timely report, too, wouldn't you say? I mean, we're dealing with
Yeah, absolutely.
a global learning crisis, a digital revolution.
All at the same time.
It's a lot.
Like a perfect storm.
Yeah, yeah.
And the report, it doesn't sugarcoat things.
No, it doesn't.
It says 70% of children globally
Wow.
are facing what they call learning poverty.
That's a striking statistic.
They can't even understand a simple text by age 10,
Yeah.
which is why this deep dive is so important, right? We need to get this right.
Absolutely. And the report really gets into that, how these digital tools can be part of the solution, or they could actually exacerbate the problem.
Exactly. A double-edged sword.
Yeah. So we're going to look at what the World Bank recommends, how we should be using these tools.
Right.
And I think a big part of this is, and we'll get into this, that whole AI in the classroom.
Oh, absolutely. That's a hot topic.
Very hot topic.
It's a complex landscape, though.
Yeah.
This report, it really pushes for some big changes, especially for policymakers.
Okay, let's talk about those changes. What are we looking at here?
Well, one of the big things is they really push back against these sort of like quick fix, one-off digital projects.
It's like just giving every kid a tablet.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
just throwing technology at the problem
Yeah.
and hoping that, magically things are going to improve.
Right.
They say that's not effective.
It's got to be more systemic than that.
It's got to be systemic. Exactly.
So what's the alternative?
Well, they advocate for what they call a systemic learning-centered approach,
Okay.
which means thinking long-term, focusing on what they call the core digital building blocks.
Give me an example. What's a building block?
Well, reliable internet access, for one.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
I mean, it seems obvious, but
You can't have digital learning without the internet.
exactly. If you can get online reliably, it's
Yeah.
not going to work.
Right.
And then the other thing is solid data systems.
What do you mean by that?
Systems that can track student progress,
Okay.
inform instruction, give teachers the data they need
Mhm.
to make decisions.
So it's about laying the groundwork
It's about the foundation.
before you jump into those shiny new gadgets.
Exactly. Get the basics right first.
And also making sure teachers have the skills to use these tools.
Yes. Digital schools for educators are crucial.
Because you can have the best tech in the world, but if the teachers aren't comfortable,
Right. If they don't know how to use it.
it's not going to do any good.
Exactly. And the report, it points to some countries as examples,
Okay.
like Estonia, South Korea.
What are they doing, right?
Well, Estonia, they have this amazing e-governance system.
Okay.
So basically, a lot of their government services are online.
Streamlined.
Yeah, and so for education,
Uh-huh.
the moment a child is born, they're automatically enrolled in school.
Wow.
They're even eligible for, various benefit programs
It's just like that.
through this system. So it's
Yeah.
very efficient.
That's incredible. What about South Korea?
South Korea, along with Denmark,
Okay.
they really invested heavily in high-speed broadband
Got it.
infrastructure across the entire country.
So widespread access.
Exactly. And what they found was
Uh-huh.
that wider internet access led to more people using online learning resources,
Okay.
which then led to schools becoming more comfortable with actually integrating those tools.
It's almost like they built it.
They built it,
And people came.
and then they can, yeah.
That's fascinating. So both of those countries, they had the foresight to think, okay, digital tools, these could be amazing,
Yeah,
but we've got to have the infrastructure in place first.
exactly. It's all about laying that foundation.
That's really interesting. Now, let's talk about those opportunities.
Yes, the exciting part.
Because the report paints this vision of a future where learning is truly personalized.
Right.
Teachers have real-time data to see how students are doing.
Huh?
School management systems are efficient.
Yeah, it's a compelling vision.
It is. Why aren't we there yet?
Well, it's a complex journey.
I imagine.
And of course, we have to talk about the potential downsides.
Right, because it's not all sunshine and roses.
Exactly. There are risks.
The report gets into that.
Yes, and I think one of the biggest ones is what we call the digital divide.
Yeah, that's a huge issue.
Not everyone has equal access to devices, the internet, even the skills.
And that can actually make existing inequalities worse, can it?
Absolutely.
Because those who already have advantages benefit more,
Yes, the gap widens.
while those who are struggling might fall even further behind.
It's a real concern.
And then there's data privacy.
Oh, huge issue.
I mean, think about all the data that's being collected on students.
Right, it's a lot.
Their academic performance,
Uh,
their learning styles, even their browsing history.
right, where does it all go?
Yeah, who has access to it? Are they using it ethically?
Big questions
Big
that
question.
we need to be asking.
It's like opening Pandora's box, isn't it?
It is, a little bit.
We need to be having serious conversations about how to protect student data.
Absolutely, it's crucial.
And that's just one ethical consideration.
Right.
The report also talks about online safety,
Yes, very important.
cyberbullying, online predators, harmful content.
It's a real risk,
The digital world can be a scary place.
especially for young people.
It is. So while digital tools have this immense potential, we can't ignore those risks.
Absolutely.
And navigating all of this requires careful planning, implementation, and evaluation.
Yes, it's not a simple fix.
It's a complex issue.
We can't just assume technology will work just because it's new and exciting.
Right.
We need evidence to guide hard decisions.
So how do we approach this? What's the key to using these tools effectively and ethically?
Well, that's where we get into this idea of evidence-based decision-making.
So like testing things out before you roll them out nationwide,
Think of
not just jumping on the latest bandwagon.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You wouldn't prescribe a new medication without clinical trials, right?
Right.
Same principle should apply to what we use in education.
Makes sense.
And the report is full of examples of different types of evidence,
Oh, okay.
like pilot programs, feasibility studies.
Yeah.
Try it out at a few schools before you go big.
Right. Start small.
And then once things are more established, you look at those impact evaluations.
The rigorous ones.
Exactly. Do they actually move the needle?
Not just do kids like using it, but are they learning more?
Exactly. Are we seeing real results?
So it's about accountability.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Making sure those investments are paying off.
And who's doing these evaluations?
That's another key point.
Okay.
The report stresses the need for independent experts.
Makes sense.
You don't want bias. You need folks who can really assess, is it effective? Is it worth the cost? Are there any risks?
Yeah, you need those objective eyes.
Precisely. And of course, all this takes time and resources.
Oh, yeah. Evaluations, they're not cheap.
No, but the report argues it's essential.
An investment worth making.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I said, we wouldn't just hand out untested medicine.
Right. We're shaping young minds here.
Exactly. We need to be just as careful with ed tech.
That's a good analogy. So all of this careful evidence-based approach,
Yeah.
it becomes even more important when we talk about AI, right?
Oh, absolutely.
AI in education, it's a game changer, but also a bit of a wild card.
Yeah, it's a powerful tool, a lot of potential, but also potential downsides.
The report talks about that.
It does. It acknowledges AI could revolutionize how we teach and learn.
Okay, paint me a picture. What does that look like?
Personalized tutoring systems that adapt to each student.
Wow.
Automated grading that frees up teachers' time.
So teachers can focus on actually teaching.
Exactly. And even chatbots that can answer students' questions.
It's almost like science fiction. But I can also see how it could be used in ways that aren't so great.
Right, and the report points that out. Like, AI could worsen existing inequalities.
Okay, how so?
Well, imagine access to those AI-powered tutoring systems if it's only available to wealthy students.
Oh, I see. The gap just gets wider.
Exactly.
So how do we harness the power of AI for good while avoiding those pitfalls?
Well, the report really emphasizes ethical guidelines and regulations.
Okay, so rules of the road for AI.
Exactly. We need to be asking tough questions. Who's developing these algorithms? What data are they trained on? Are there safeguards against bias?
It's not just the what, but the how.
Precisely. It's about responsible development, deployment, and governance of AI.
And is anyone doing this well? Are there any examples?
The report points to the EU's new AI law.
Okay.
It's a sign that policymakers are starting to take these ethical implications seriously.
Good, because we need to be both excited about AI's potential, but also really vigilant about those potential downsides.
Absolutely, it's a powerful tool that requires responsible stewardship.
It does, and that brings us back to one of the report's key themes, right? A learning-centered approach.
Exactly. It's not just about the tech, it's about how we use it to enhance teaching and learning, how it benefits all students.
Okay, I'm starting to get the bigger picture here, but this report, it is dense.
It is. There's a lot in there.
Can we distill some key takeaways for our listeners? For someone trying to make sense of this digital landscape in education.
Sure. I think one of the most important takeaways is that digital tools, they're not a magic bullet.
Right, not a quick fix.
Exactly. It's not just buy the latest gadget and everything's solved.
It takes strategy, planning, ongoing evaluation.
Absolutely.
And it's got to be about the needs of students and teachers first.
Always. Technology should support them, not the other way around.
And those ethical implications, we can't forget about those.
Yeah.
Data privacy, online safety, making sure we're not widening those inequalities.
Right, those are crucial considerations.
The report really pushes for a holistic approach, doesn't it?
It does. It considers all those dimensions, the technical, the pedagogical, the ethical, the social.
That's a lot to juggle.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's why the report lays out this framework. They call it a systemic, learning-centered approach.
Okay, break that down for me.
It's about thinking of digital education as a system,
Mm.
with interconnected parts,
Uh-huh.
and making sure those parts are working together to actually support learning.
I like that. It's not just about the technology in isolation. It's about the bigger picture.
Exactly. And the report breaks this framework down into 4 key layers.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are those layers?
Well, the first layer focuses on proactive governance and strategic leadership.
So I'm making sure everyone's on the same page from the top down.
Yeah, you need that vision, that national digital education strategy that aligns with your broader goals.
And strong leadership to drive it forward.
Absolutely, at every level, from the ministry down to the school principal.
Okay, so that's layer 1. What about layer 2?
Layer 2 is all about digital public infrastructure and partnerships. So
Mhm.
layer 2 is all about building that foundation, that digital public infrastructure.
Right, the nuts and bolts, making sure kids can get online, they have devices.
Exactly. Reliable internet, affordable devices, and keeping that student data secure.
Big job. And who's footing the bill for all of this? Is this all on governments?
Not necessarily. The report actually highlights the importance of partnerships. Governments, private companies, nonprofits, everyone working together.
So leveraging each other's strengths.
Exactly. A tech company might be great at developing an online learning platform, but a nonprofit might know better how to reach those underserved communities.
Right, they're on the ground.
Yeah. And this layer also talks about things like open educational resources.
Those are free teaching materials, right?
Yes. Free to use, free to share, and open source technologies too, making learning more accessible and affordable.
So it's about being resourceful, making the most of what's out there.
Exactly. And when we get to layer 3, we're looking at how technology is actually used in the classroom.
Okay, bring us into the classroom. What's happening there?
They call this the education ICT and data layer,
ICT, remind me what that stands for.
information and communication technology.
Right, right.
So basically all the software and systems that power digital learning.
Okay, so like learning management systems,
Mhm.
where teachers can post assignments and track grades.
Exactly. And all those tools kids use to take quizzes and tests online, plus data analytics platforms.
Data analytics, that sounds important. What do they do?
They help us make sense of all the data we're collecting on students.
Yeah, because you don't want to just collect data for no reason. You need to use it to improve things.
Right, and this layer emphasizes teacher training, making sure they're comfortable using all these tools.
Of course, professional development. Tech changes so fast.
It does. And woven throughout all this is the importance of data privacy and security.
Protecting students' information.
Yes, their grades, their learning styles, their addresses, it's all sensitive information.
It's a huge responsibility. Makes you realize we have to be so careful with how we use all this technology.
Absolutely. It's not just about the cool factor. It's about using it ethically and responsibly.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, so we've laid the groundwork, we've got the tools, now what? How's this actually changing how kids learn?
That's where layer 4 comes in digitally enabled service delivery. This is where we see the impact.
The rubber meets the road. Tell me more.
We're talking about things like personalized learning.
Tailoring the instruction to each student.
Exactly. Meeting their individual needs. Then there's blended learning, combining online and face-to-face instruction. And game-based learning.
I've heard great things about game-based learning. Kids learn without even realizing it.
Right. Games can be powerful learning tools, especially if they're well designed.
And this layer also talks about designing for scale. What does that mean exactly?
It means thinking big, making sure these solutions can work not just in a small pilot program, but across an entire school district or even a whole country.
That requires some serious planning.
It does. And it also means empowering teachers. They're the ones in the classroom every day.
Right, they need to be part of the process.
Exactly. And the report gives examples of countries doing this well, like Finland. They've invested heavily in teacher training, and created this culture of collaboration around digital education.
So Finland is a model for this fourth layer.
They're doing a lot of things right, yes.
Inspiring. But even with a great framework, there are still challenges, right? The report doesn't shy away from those risks.
No, it doesn't. And one of the biggest ones we keep coming back to is the digital divide. Yeah. It's a tough problem, and it really highlights the importance of making sure digital education is equitable.
It is. We can't leave any student behind just because they don't have access to the same resources.
Exactly. And it's not just about giving them devices and internet. It's about digital literacy skills.
Being able to navigate the online world, evaluate information.
Exactly. And we need to make sure everyone has the opportunity to learn those skills, no matter their background.
Absolutely. And the report talks about culturally and linguistically relevant resources too.
Right. Not every student learns best in the same language or through the
Yeah.
same kind of content.
So digital education needs to be inclusive.
Absolutely. We need to make sure it works for everyone. And that brings us back to data privacy, making sure we're protecting all that student information.
Huge issue. I mean, we're collecting so much data these days, it can feel overwhelming.
It can. And the report calls for strong data governance policies, transparency, and good cybersecurity to keep that data safe.
So it's not just about the tech itself, but about the rules around using it.
Right. And making sure students and families know their rights and how to stay safe online.
Empowering them to be good digital citizens. And speaking of safety, we have to talk about online harm.
It's a tough topic, but an important one. Cyberbullying, predators, inappropriate content, it's all out there.
How do we protect kids from that?
The report recommends things like cybersecurity in schools, online safety training, and clear ways to report abuse.
So creating a culture of safety online, just like we try to do offline.
Exactly. And teaching kids to be upstanders to speak up if they see something wrong.
Essential skills for navigating the digital world. And one more thing we can't forget about, the environmental impact of all this technology.
Right. All those devices have a footprint.
We love our gadgets, but we don't always think about what happens to them when we're done with them.
It's true. And the report encourages schools to think about sustainability, using energy-efficient devices, reducing e-waste.
Teaching kids to be mindful of their impact on the planet.
Exactly. It's all connected. Wow, we've really covered a lot today. The opportunities, the challenges, the risks, that whole systemic approach.
My head's spinning a little, but in a good way. I think the biggest takeaway for me is that technology has so much potential, but we have to use it wisely.
I agree. It's not about the tech itself. It's about how we use it to make learning better for everyone.
Well said. And I think that's a perfect place to wrap things up. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into digital education.
My pleasure.
As always, we encourage you to check out the full World Bank report for all the details. This deep dive was custom designed just for you, and we hope you found it insightful. Until next time.